Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
At Allen Samuels Jeep in Waco, get a 2026 Jeep Wrangler Sport for just $32,990. Or take $10,000 off a 2026 Jeep Grand Cherokee Summit.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
Extreme Texas weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox Premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
All right, an update from Oklahoma City. Tennessee 5-3 now. Texas, very, very explosive team, defending national title. They go to the 7th inning. Tennessee leads Texas right now, 5-3. The Horns picked up 3 runs in the 6th, and Texas Tech won early. Run rule, Mississippi State 8-0, the final. Now to some news when it comes to Brett Yormark and the Big 12. Those spring meetings that began yesterday continue today and run through tomorrow as well. Brett Yormark had a couple of different notes. One of them is on the interest that the Big 10 or the Big 12 might look at going to 10 football games, conference games, 10 football games. You just had the ACC and the SEC go to 9. The Big 10 and the Big 12 have been doing 9. And now Yormark says there's at least the opportunity or at least the discussion that they would look at possibly doing 10 conference games. Craig?
I mean, sure, I guess. If this is your response to being boxed out of scheduling better teams, but I think this is probably not great for the overall health in the long term if you are playing more of yourself and less of maybe better opponents. Now, if it's a game against Alcorn State that you're not playing, then that's one thing. Those buy-in games, and it does trickle down. You worry about the effect that if not even the Big 12 scheduling these teams now, like what happens to Toledo and to some of these other schools that normally bank on some of those early season checks. But as is clear in this sport, everybody's just out for themselves, so screw those teams, right? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, 10 conference games, 2 non-cons. It would heavily depend on what that non-con looks like. If your non-cons is a couple of whatever teams, then I'm not real in favor of that. So yeah, it would definitely depend on the details here. I think it's something you've got to at least consider because the scheduling is changing so rapidly across the country, and everybody's trying to set themselves up for whatever the 24 team, if that's where we go, playoff looks like, or a 16 team, if that's where we go, what that looks like. So I understand everybody getting their ducks in a row, but on the surface, I would need to see more details on how exactly this would look. And I'm not necessarily holding an opinion one way or the other. I kind of look at that, and I'm not so sure I love it, but I would need to know more.
Well, and they are discussing that because the football coaches are meeting with your Mark and all the others, Scott Draper today, and that might also be something that's asked to the coaches, Rich Rod and Joey McGuire today, along with other questions. For your Mark, if we do go to 24, we should explore going to 10 conference games. It's something I would like to do on lots of levels. Of course, it would take membership approval. And you mentioned this. You have games that are being canceled that are non-conference games against the other Power 4 schools, as that seems to be a trend of all the conferences. And you could get boxed out at playing enough games that are meaningful. Now, you're not going to make up playing Oregon by playing, with all due respect, anyone else, one extra team in the Big 12. It's not that it would be a good team, but playing Oregon or playing teams from the Big 10 and the SEC and or the ACC are something the Big 12 not only needs to play, schedule play, and also when they do play, win the damn things.
Yeah, and I don't think everything's like in reaction to. I think you've got to plan out the future and be ready for wherever the pivot may come next. So I appreciate that they're at least looking at it. I just find it sort of odd that fresh on the heels of two leagues finally deciding to play the same number of conference games as you, which you've been begging for, you now turn around and say, I want to play another conference game. It's like, so the SEC finally is playing 9, and now you want to play 10. And it's just, I don't know. How about we get the Big 10 to have a Power 4 requirement in the non-con, and then we talk about doing 10 games? Like, how about we get everybody fully on the same page? Because that's a pretty glaring difference between some of the other leagues. We got everybody on the same number of games after some pulling back and forth, but now we need to get we play a similar non-con, I think, across the board. That would be great. And then we can go from there on whether we start adding or subtracting. If it replaces a lesser game, then you need to boost your strength of schedule. Then, okay, yeah, it makes sense if it's going to be an attractive game. But if you're replacing a really good team on your resume, which, look, there's hits or misses. There's some teams that were scheduled to play a banger like in Oregon, and there's other teams that are playing nobody, quite frankly, for whatever those reasons may be. I think that's going to be something that we revisit with Texas Tech. Their non-conference schedule, they could not account for Oregon State and the Pac-12 going the way that it did. But I do think that when it comes to the end of the year, if they are in the discussion again and they are being compared against other teams who have played some better teams in the non-conference, that's going to be something that dings them. So, yeah, it's an interesting proposition. I'll be curious to hear what the schools have to say about it and what the details are exactly as to why this makes sense for them. Like, what is it, the more money thing? Is it the more exposure? Is it bettering the schedule overall? Or what is it? What is the angle you're trying to play here? That's what I want to know.
That's why they're meeting today, and hopefully we'll get an answer from Scott Draper at some point this afternoon. How much was it discussed? Now, there is still the conversation about Redbird Capital, Weatherford Capital, that infused some money into the Big 12, but that nobody among the 16 Big 12 programs, schools, universities, colleges, etc., have taken advantage of, have taken that offer. Brett Yormark also telling Front Office Sports there was no expectation that any Big 12 school will take advantage of the $30 million credit option available as part of the Redbird Weatherford Capital deal. When crafting the deal with Redbird and Weatherford, there was no assumption that any school would use the credit option. I don't think there was any expectation. I think the rationale for doing that, part of the deal was to effectively create an insurance policy for our schools if and when they needed something and create a safety net. He went on to finish with this, and what they need or what they want today could be different in 6 months. It could be very different in 12 months from now. They have 12 months to tap into it, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's good if, in fact, they didn't anticipate that anybody was going to really take up the offer. And so no harm, no foul there. And it's more about the long term and other options that are available, like with the potential TV negotiations and Redbirds affiliations and how that might benefit them. This story was interesting when it was about who might take them up on the offer, but now it's pretty clear nobody's taking the offer. Now we do have a table of time, as you said, where that could change. I just don't know what 30 million is really doing for anybody. I think it's a very temporary Band-Aid, and I guess he even refers to it as being kind of a temporary, if you're in a pinch and you're needing to get a quick injection of cash. But I don't know. I think if you're in like, well, we need that quick 30 million, like I think you're in much bigger trouble than just getting that quick fix, or there's a specific set of circumstances. So yeah, I mean, it's good to have it rather than not have it if you need it. But I would love to know like what kind of position you're in where you're going to have to just suddenly go, all right, never mind, we do need this 30 million. Like, what the hell went wrong? Did you have to fire a coach and there's a massive buyout, something along those lines? Then I guess it makes sense. But yeah, I think this is pretty clearly more of a long-term play, less about the grabbing the 30 million and more about what could come with this partnership on down the line. So I think that's been evident in all of the conversation the last couple of weeks as everybody has seemingly said no. And going back to the previous thing as well, I know that 10 games has been bandied about in some of the other leagues. We didn't spend much time on it, but I know like the ACC talked about it a little bit. Jim Phillips was on the record as mentioned it. I know the Big Ten talked about it, at least like brought it up. So the Big 12 is no different in doing that. And I do think it's a response to kind of getting boxed out of scheduling as well. I mean, now there's one less game to schedule SEC teams, right? Because they now all have that ninth game. And same thing with other similar moves. So that's one less opponent maybe out there. So I just wonder, though, when you get to like 10 of your games or league games, I know he made mention as well about TV ratings and how their conference games get rated higher. So I'm assuming that's an element of it as well. But I do just find it funny of like you finally got everybody on the same page and now you're already going, well, what about 10? Like before we even see a ninth SEC game. So it never stops.
It is. You're right. You get through a hurdle, you jump a hurdle, you whatever. And the next thing you know, by the time you land, there's something else that has changed.
I don't think it's going to happen unless there's a scenario where they get boxed out, where the SEC and Big Ten have some alliance where they decide to play each other. So that's yet another week where you can't play teams of that caliber. And then you're basically just stuck with it's either the ACC or everyone else. Then maybe you go, yeah, we'd rather see Kansas State play Iowa State or whatever other matchup they obviously play most of the time. But then I could see where 10 would make sense. But right now, I don't feel like you're in that situation. So good to discuss, but I don't think it's anything you follow through with at this point.
No. So here's an interesting note about yesterday, because Sankey met with the media late in the afternoon. There's even some meetings going on with the SEC today where they are in Florida. So Blake Topmeyer, who's going to be a guest of ours next Tuesday for USA Today, I've been watching some of what he's been writing, columns, et cetera, opinion pieces. So at the end of the day, they had the press conference, and Topmeyer asked Greg Sankey the question about the Big Ten surpassing the SEC in football. Sankey interjected, asked for the metrics behind the question. I noted the Big Ten 3 straight national titles, 4-0 record against the SEC in the college football playoff games the last 3 years. Sankey then responded with the answers that he has been told based on the metrics, et cetera, that we are still the deepest league. We are still rated as the best league. We are still the super league and more. And then Topmeyer said, Sankey said, if you look at the entirety of our league, we are by far the most competitive and the strongest football league by far. Sankey went on to say, if we win, you, the reporter, don't ask me the question. Topmeyer went on to say, yeah, if the SEC wins, its commissioner doesn't answer questions about losing. He'd tout national titles, but the SEC is not winning. It's 0-4 in playoff games against the Big Ten the past 3 years, and that includes 2 blowouts. And there were a lot of other national and other regional reporters that kind of say, hey, Blake, thanks for asking the question, and then also not backing away from the question when Sankey responded with that Yeah, but we still are the deepest, most powerful football league in America.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What's your question here? I mean, what do you think about it?
I think the SEC, really, we know the last 20 to 25 years of what they've done, but they have moved the goalpost many different times while also winning the national titles. And if they would have a blip one year or two, they would move the goalpost to others. Like, for example, we have the most viewership. We would have don't have the greatest revenue. We have this, we have that. The metrics say this. But when the mid-level teams last year in the SEC were trying to get in the college football playoffs, it was almost as if, well, because they're a part of the SEC. What the SEC has to be careful of is that their shit doesn't stink. They are a great conference. I'm not doubting that. But you have to look at the last 3 years, and the Big Ten has won the national titles, which is what created the SEC being able to say who they are in creating the 800-pound gorilla of what they do in college football.
Yeah, and I get all that. I just and I appreciate Blake's questions. I don't know what you expect Greg Sankey to do. Like, was he going to bow down to the Big Ten and be like, yeah, you know what, guys, you're right. We suck. We're number 2 now, and we're not the best league. You know what? I absolutely don't think that he's always just 100% genuine and honest all the time. I think he's got to have a bit of an armor on, but I do think that he does believe every bit of what he says about them being like the deepest, the best league still. I think in his mind, he believes they're a super league. I believe the top half of their league is a super league. You're not going to sell me on the bottom half of that league being a super league. You're just simply not going to. I don't give a damn how much history or whatever you want to throw at me. You're not going to sit there and sell me on how Arkansas at their current state and Vanderbilt, no matter what they've done the last 3 or 4 years, and Kentucky football specifically, and so on, are super league teams. Like, from a monetary standpoint and TV ratings, like, yeah, but like, as far as, this is why I get into my definition of it versus others. But in his mind, yeah, they are a super league. By his definition, they are a super league. And I absolutely believe that he believes that. I absolutely believe he's the commissioner of the SEC. So if you're expecting him to go, you know what? Yeah, man, the Big Ten's great. They've totally passed us. Let me say that before we get into these TV negotiations that are about to happen, by the way, as well. ESPN will love me if I tell you that the Big Ten, of course he's not going to say the Big Ten's better. And of course he thinks his league is better. So yeah, if the SEC had won the national title last year, he'd be bragging about that, because what commissioner wouldn't? But just because another league won it, like, I don't think you'd expect him to go, even if the Big Ten's won 3 in a row, he's suddenly going to back away from believing what he believes. So I don't know. It feels like trying to get him into a gotcha kind of thing or something. I don't know. I appreciate the approach here, and I get at what's being gotten at. I just don't expect Greg Sankey to think anything other than the SEC is the best and want to do anything but what's best for the SEC.
I get it. He's not going to. But if you're gonna push how good you are because you win national titles, and then you're asked a question at a press conference, and the question is very legitimate, but then you said, had we not lost, you wouldn't ask me that question. Well, of course not, because then you would not have lost 3 consecutive championship games.
There'd be no reason to ask the question. Yeah, right. Because there wouldn't be any reasons. So, yeah, I mean, I think Greg Sankey saying what's the metrics behind saying that, he could very simply say, well, hey, 3 straight national titles, and that's what Blake points out, and 4-0 record in the CFP games, and that's all very valid. Like, look, nobody has been as patient in trying to kind of watch the league sort of balance out and fall to where everybody else is. Like, I mean, I've been somebody who's been very critical at times about the SEC, but I've also seen like this swelling of, now you can feel like the 20 years of their dominance being thrown back on them. Yep. And like, everybody just wants to grab a bat and take a swing at them. And I totally understand that, and I'm sympathetic to that. But I also think like it can be a little bit overboard sometimes. It's like, yeah, okay, you've lost 3 national titles in a row. What do you want the guy to say? Like, again, bow down to the Big Ten. So yeah, I'm not surprised that the guy who's been put in place by the presidents, who are SEC lovers to their core, is going to be a guy who defends his league, and it is his job to push back on certain angles like that. So yeah, I think the national titles speak for themselves. I just kind of find it funny how everybody keeps throwing that in his face, and
Because they were good at throwing it at everybody else.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right.
I don't know that you're going to ever get a different answer from him. So I don't know why you'd be surprised when he still sticks his opinions in the same way that he always has.
Sankey's saying that the metrics are pretty narrow, a narrow band, but his league still stands alone. That's not true. If you look at the entirety of our league, we are by far the most competitive, the strongest football league by far. But you're going to lose games when it's close and competitive like that, talking about the playoff games. So why have they surpassed us? It's an oddball. It's bounced a couple of times the wrong way, including when Mississippi was trying to throw in the end zone to beat Miami as kind of a quasi-decent normal throw, but a little bit of a Hail Mary combined with that too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate Blake asking that question. I appreciate him pushing the commissioner a little bit. But, I mean, this guy's towing the company line. He's never not going to do that. The Big Ten could win 10 straight national titles. And guess what he's still going to say? Well, yeah, but the TV ratings for our teams, if the Big Ten were to have 1 through 8 have better ratings than their 1 through 8, guess the conversation would then be when you talk to Greg saying, well, our 1 through 16 has a better – I mean, that's always going to be – the response. So yeah, you're never going to have the SEC commissioner be like, you know what, guys, you're right. We're not the best anymore. The Big Ten is better than us. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. So there we are with that. I can't wait for this week and the meetings to be over until we get to, of course, the media days in July, which we've been working on our plans of what we do in Frisco, Texas.
But it is very interesting to see that this conversation is even happening, because for 20 years, it was not a realistic conversation. Then for it to even simply be a non-SEC national championship for like 1 year after Saban and Georgia and all that run was like, oh my God, what a breath of fresh air. And then it was 2 and you're like, oh my God, wow, how could this possibly get better? And now it's 3. And then now it's like 3 to the point where it could be 4 and nobody would be surprised by that. And hell, maybe it's like 6 in a row, and that'll really be something here in about 3 years. But yeah, you can tell that the 3-year Big Ten run has certainly flipped some opinions on their head and certainly changed some of the dynamics of the conversation about who runs what and who's this and who's that. And I think that's threatening to him. It's probably not a very comfortable position to be in when for years and years and years you got to walk to the podium and feel like you were the belle of the ball all the time, because every year you were walking in as the commissioner of the National Championship League. So I think he's squirming a little bit because, yeah, suddenly they're not entirely bulletproof, but he's still going to toe the company line.
No, he's probably a little bit annoyed, and believe me, he's talking to the coaches about that too. Here are some responses in the chat room. On the 10 games that the Big 12 is at least possibly going to discuss. Skylar Mosker, a loss in the college championship game on a TV deal will decrease the value for the individual deal with the conference, the Big 12 conference. So a 10th game brings value back individually to the playoff value. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, but it sounds like what, Skylar, I believe you're trying to say is by adding a 10th conference game, it can make up for a lack of success in the college football playoff, which I disagree with that, or at least gives you another game that will be under that Fox and ESPN window as a conference game and money.
Yeah, I just don't know, and appreciate you, Scott. Skylar, sorry. Appreciate you, Skylar. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that money would look like. I mean, is it that much of a difference? Is it something that's a game changer when you write it down? I don't know, but yeah, that's an interesting thought, and maybe that's part of what they're considering here. I'm of the opinion that unless, like, and I said a few minutes ago, if I'm missing out on like a money part of it, well, then that's a pretty big piece to be missing out on. So then my opinion would change if I had that information. And so you may be right on that front, but just knowing what we do know, I know the Big Ten discussed it. They're not going forward with it. The ACC at least discussed it. They're not going forward with it. I can't imagine the Big Ten or the Big 12 is going to actually go forward with this right now. I do think that you've got to discuss it, especially if others are doing the same. And there's this momentum building that this is a conversation that's maybe going to be realistic in the near future because of boxing out reasons. So, yeah, like I said a few minutes ago, I think if you come to the point like that where now you're being squeezed for who's available to play and you can no longer play a Wisconsin, it would just be another watered down here. Let's pay somebody $150,000 here. Albany, come on down to Stillwater and take your check. Then yeah, I think you're better off giving Fox or ESPN another game and playing Iowa State as opposed to playing Long Island. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're kind of on the same page, hopefully, there.
Here's a couple of notes from, again, the chat room. We appreciate you for being there. We also know that a lot of you are watching us that don't get in the chat room, which is on our YouTube channel. The rich kid is finally getting told no, and now he wants to take his ball and go play with himself because he can't handle it. Why do you expect Sankey to say, yeah, we suck? That's from General Ursus. Not saying we expect him to do that. General Ursus, by the way, it looks like Tennessee women might be moving into the next round with a win against Texas. We're not expecting Sankey to say, yeah, we suck. But when you can bludgeon people and use your power and be proud of it, and you should be, because the ACC and the Big 12 would too, then when it's not perfect, which means winning national titles, which is what created the SEC chant, if you're not winning them, then all of a sudden it wouldn't hurt to at least, we have to do better. And he also, by the way, at times has said that, but that was in the specific moment yesterday in Florida.
Yeah, I don't think he owes anybody anything to throw the bone to the Big Ten. I mean, I think the results speak for themselves. It's not Greg Sankey's job to go give them a pat on the back. I think everybody else has done that. I mean, I don't expect him to say anything other than the company line, like I've said a few times now. And I think if you're expecting anything else, then what Greg Sankey have you been following all these years? Like, I mean, even if he does believe the Big Ten's better, he's not going to say that. Even if he does feel some cracks in the armor, he's not going to say that. He's going to be as much of a confident, blustery, and kind of aggressive guy in regards to protecting the SEC as he ever was before, and maybe even more so now, because he does feel a little bit threatened by the fact that they can't just point to the trophy case like they were able to do for 20-something years. And especially when there is this tug of war seemingly for who's the top dog, when you're on the losing side of 3 straight national championships, it's very unfamiliar territory. So I think he's definitely a bit more defensive now. I think there's also reporters going on the offensive that were licking his boots for 20 years or for however many years. And so it's just probably an odd place to be in, where now you got people poking at you like, how about that, huh? How about that? So, yeah, I don't think I would react to that very well, but I totally understand the sentiment. Like, again, when you've had ESPN for 2 decades talking about a league a certain kind of way, but having the ammunition to back it up year after year after year after year for the most part, eventually when that tide turns, then and the worm turns, then, yeah, there's going to be some backlash to that. So that's what we're seeing right now. But he's an SEC guy. He's not a Big Ten guy. I think he probably respects the job that they've done, but he's still going to feel they're the best. And I'm not so sure he's not right as far as top to bottom, but I don't know why anybody like General Ursus said would expect anything else.
Let's see here. Bracket from General Ursus. I have watched Texas. Oh, this is about the softball win for Texas Tech. We'll get to that in a minute. Cycles come and go, no question. Absolutely. There was a time when it was the Big Eight that they were really as good as anybody, if not the best conference in college football. Of course, that's going back a long, long way. It was the SEC winning championships. Today, it's the Big Ten. Eventually, it will swing back to the SEC. Yes, because if you have enough of those programs that can stay in the game where we are, NIL, all of that, then they're going to win titles. Because if you look back at the history of college football, Indiana is absolutely like the exception. But all the other names are pretty much always the same ones over the last 50 to 75 years.
Well, yeah, it's going to turn. It might turn this year. I mean, this might be a 3-year run. I doubt it. I don't think the Big Ten's guaranteed to win a 4th straight title, but yeah, it's going to be those 2 leagues mostly at the top. That's what history's dictated. Maybe the ACC pops their head in every once in a while with a Miami or a really good FSU team. Maybe, just maybe, Texas Tech can get over to the point where their spending and their commitment is getting them into playing for a championship. I mean, that's the hope. Maybe a BYU can find themselves there one day as well. I don't know. But, yeah, these things go in cycles. You just don't know how long the cycle is going to be. And I think just this big, weird adjustment for a lot of people is that we went through a really long cycle. We went through 2 decades. We went through somebody being born, graduating college practically and not knowing anything other except for like in 3 years or something like SEC national championships. Like that's all they knew. I knew a time before that. You knew a time before that. But there's like 20-something-year-olds that's all they've ever seen. So these last 3 years are like a shock to the system. And I think for a lot of the leadership thought that run would never end. And it's a bit of a shock, and they're kind of reacting to it. So it's been interesting to see that, because I didn't know if that day would ever come. I really didn't know if their dominance would ever run out. I knew like every once in a while Ohio State's going to win a national title. But to see what we've seen the last 3 years, nobody could have predicted that. Nobody was predicting Indiana would cap off 3 straight different national titles for the Big Ten. So it's left us in a place no one expected, but a very interesting place. And for Greg Sankey, a little bit sometimes of an uncomfortable place, but he'll adjust. So will they as a league, and so will everybody else. We'll see where it takes us. That's the exciting part, is who the hell knows? Indiana just won a national championship. So who's to say what the next 5 years look like, much less the next 20?
When we come back, I agree. It's refreshing what Indiana did. It's refreshing from what other programs are trying to do. And God knows where we go from here when it comes to the rules and regulations in college football and athletics. When we come back, Matt Brown, Extra Points, his thoughts about the bill, his thoughts today about what's going on in college athletics. And he has sent out a bunch of Freedom of Information Act letters. He sends out, I think, thousands of them before the end of the year. Matt Brown will join us. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock owns 5 locations, 5 stores here around the Waco area. But you might be, for example, in Birmingham, or you might be in Phoenix, or you might be in Kansas City. Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Go to marcos.com for what they have, the deals that are online. And of course, my favorite is the both pepperoni and Italian sausage Magnifico, because it's loaded up with both. I mean, you the top of the pizza, and I like thin crust, so it gets a little heavy, but it never like bends. The top of the pizza, all pepperoni, all Italian sausage. It is just really, really good. And they have other options outside of pizza as well. Marco's Pizza, fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Spring is here, and so are the savings during Richard Card's Spring into Savings sales event.
Buick Enclave, Envision, and Encore deliver premium quality and unbeatable value. Right now, non-GM owners can save $5,250 on all 2026 Buick Envisions in stock, or save $6,750 on all 2026 3-row Enclaves in stock.
Spring into action and save. Get your next ride at the Spring into Savings event at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
more. Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
Matt Brown, Extra Points, joins us on 365 Sports and the Smoke Show. And Matt, of course, with the Extra Points, which is a great newsletter. Matt, thank you very much for your time today with both Craig and me. What was your reaction when you saw, and then eventually knowing you probably went with a fine-tooth comb, went through the Cantwell and Cruz bill?
Thanks for having me, guys. I was not terribly surprised about the bulk of this bill. I admit I've talked to staffers from both of those Senate offices over the last year and had a good sense that whatever the compromise was going to look like would be mostly centered on eligibility, on limited antitrust exemptions, and would try to ignore the employment question as much as possible, since that is the kind of biggest partisan trigger. I think looking at the whole, 117 pages, 111 pages, I think that there are some legitimately good policy ideas, things that if you separated them from this bill might get 75 plus votes in the Senate. There are some lines in here that I think are well-intentioned, but not terribly realistic or bad ideas. And a few that are very clearly meant to be a screw you to the Big Ten and the SEC, which I think is funny. That wasn't something that came up in any of my conversations leading up to this. I think reasonable people can debate whether that's good policy or legislative overreach, but it is a little bit funny to see.
Matt, when does the SEC and Big Ten break away and start their own college football league?
When it becomes profitable to do so, and right now it's not. And it isn't for a lot of different reasons. This is a similar thing that comes up every couple of years, really, since I've been doing college football sports writing for a living. A lot of groups of schools, whether it's all of Division I or all of FBS or all of some other subgroup, get all frustrated and angry with the NCAA and think we should go do our own thing for football. And then they realize what the liability costs are going to be, what the medical costs are going to be, the new legal costs. And they realize, actually, no, the system's pretty good, because now when we get sued, we can go make the Big Sky pay for part of it. Or we could pass them, we can distribute those costs along everywhere. There's certainly going to be a lot of broadcaster interest in wherever Big Ten or SEC institutions are playing football. But given the massive amount of money you would need to buy your way out of so many different contractual commitments and the political challenges here, as you can see, there's a bipartisan consensus. Yeah. We all hate these two leagues. And I think breaking away and trying to do your own thing would attract additional antitrust review. Could happen someday. Don't think it's going to happen immediately. And if it does, I'm not convinced it happens on Big Ten or SEC lines. Because once we start cutting away major parts of college football, I don't see why we have to assume Rutgers gets to be a part of that.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I think of Super League, I've long said I don't think it's just taking those two leagues as is and just, they're a Super League. It's like, I'm sorry, but I don't consider fill in the blank Rutgers, the new Indiana that we all just point to as like the worst team. Yeah, I don't consider them a Super League versus an Oklahoma State or somebody like that. But it is very interesting because, man, I brought this up to Michael McCann a little while ago, but they talk in pro sports terms, but they're still universities. And so there are all of these different political elements that are entirely different, but you hear them talking about this like they are pro sports teams. And it's almost like you have to remind yourself of, no, you're universities with political affiliations and a lot of vested people that make this a bit more complicated than just treating this like signing your new deal for TV partners.
Unquestionably. And I'm sure Mr. McCann, got into this because he's forgotten more about this element of the law than I've learned as a layman. But you're right. Universities are obligated right now under Title IX to sponsor a whole bunch of other different sports programs that NFL and NBA teams are not. Professional sports leagues pay their athletes as employees and have a collective bargaining agreement and all of the labor structure that comes with that, which is not part of college sports. And college sports for the last 100 years hasn't even been trying to show a profit. There's been every incentive to spend every dollar that you possibly get, because there's no profit taking, right? If you end up with a $30 million surplus, maybe you have a rainy day fund, you send it over to the library, you get a nice plaque at NACTA, and then you have the same problem again next year. So if you try to completely superimpose that legal structure onto what you have right now in college sports, you're going to have problems. And I would argue, and I think McCann would as well, that's a big reason why the CSC hasn't really worked out, why there's been a lot of frustration and chaos, I think, over the last 2 years, because if you're not going to treat people like employees, you can't treat their contracts like employees and have the same buyouts and restrictive covenants. And next thing you know, there's just a lot of roster attrition and change that the schools don't really have any power over.
Matt, take me and others that aren't like very much entrenched in what goes on in Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the process or whatever, because this is not going to happen next week. They're going to meet. But kind of take us through what must happen and how much of this bill can get through the House to even be voted on by the Senate, if much at all.
This is, I think, a really great point, because to me, the major obstacles for this thing to become law are less about the bill itself and more about calendar and process. The way that this would need to work, if I'm trying to remember my schoolhouse rock days or my undergraduate days, is you need this Senate bill to escape a filibuster to eventually get 60 votes. So you would need every single Republican to support it, and then I believe 7 Democrats, and more Democrats if any Republicans like Rand Paul decide to vote against it. This bill is going to go through other committees and markups, and there's going to be changes and tweaks before it is put up to a final vote. And once that happens, then it goes to the House. The House looked at a pretty similar bill, the SCORE Act, multiple times over the last year. There are a few meaningful differences. SCORE expressly prohibited athlete employment. This bill does not. But then it needs to go back, and the majority needs to vote on and approve that as well. Part of the challenge here is that it is the end of May, and there's going to be a recess in the Senate in August, and we have a midterm election in early November. And there's generally not a lot of legislative activity in the month or two before that, because people are traveling and they're campaigning and they're not going to show up for votes. So if this is going to work, it needs to be rushed. This is something that has to get wrapped up realistically by the end of July, so that there's not a whole lot of time. And things that have nothing to do with college sports, like, I don't know, a war or any number of international or major national events, could change the legislative calendar and get this pushed back.
Matt, what do you think of kind of the Cody Campbell, Greg Sankey back and forth? I don't know if you saw much of that today, but I just find it interesting, kind of the tug of war and the power being pulled in different directions. And Greg Sankey, a guy who's still got plenty of power, but he is the figurehead for schools, and they are in a place that we never foresaw them being in because they were so dominant for so long. But feels like a guy who's kind of not in fully control and kind of a little bit defensive, but also I can see why people side-eye with Cody Campbell. I'm just curious your thoughts on just kind of the power dynamics at play here.
It's super interesting, and I don't want to be partisan, but I think it's a little bit of a microcosm of how a lot of policy works in this country. Period. Right? Unquestionably, Greg Sankey still has an enormous amount of power. Well, along with Tony Petitti, more power than any single individual likely within the college sports infrastructure. And if we think back over the last 2 or 3 years, both of those individuals have not been shy about exercising that power and pushing it, because those two leagues represent the wealthiest and the overwhelming majority of the biggest brands in college sports. So it's those two that really get to decide how the college football playoff works. It's those two that were the major driving forces between changes in the NCAA basketball tournament. And for a while, a push to maybe get rid of some of the automatic bids for the low major programs. It's those two that have pushed for major governance changes. And that can all work if you have the power. But you have to remember that there are a lot more states out there that are governed, that are the home of ACC or Big 12 or Mountain West or Sun Belt institutions. And if you push those folks around enough, and boy, friends, I'll tell you, over the last year, I've gotten a lot of phone calls from athletic directors who are not normally prone to profanity, who have expressed some really pointed frustration with the Big Ten and the SEC. eventually they're going to go to their lawmakers. And the pure math of how the Senate works is if everyone is just so sick of your crap and thinks that you are the figureheads for all that is wrong with college sports right now, they're going to gang up on you, which is part of why I think it's a little bit funny that there's clauses in this bill that are pretty explicitly middle fingers to the Big Ten and the SEC. Why are there middle fingers in here specific to that? Well, it's not just because Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington remembers what happened for her constituents who root for Washington after the Pac-12 fell apart, and suddenly now they're going across the country to play Rutgers on a Wednesday, but also what happened to Washington State and the community of Pullman. But beyond that, yeah, you also have a billionaire who has enough money to influence how bills are made and to go buy a ton of television advertising himself, and who is a leader for Texas Tech, one of the prime examples of an institution who's deeply in their best interest here to try to limit the amount of power that the Big Ten and the SEC have. If you're like a bajillionaire and you're friends with the president and you can buy a bunch of television ads, senators are going to listen to you. And his fingerprints, I think, are all over this particular bill. And it just so happens that this exact personal fight is part of what happens here. And I'll tell you, look, we all know about this because this happened about college football. This happens for bills in other industries all the time.
Oil, electricity, whatever, right? Animal rights. I mean, I'm just whatever.
Sure, it could be Uber, could be technology, could be copper manufacturing. Who knows? It's just whatever that particular niche is.
Cell phone service, internets. So, Matt, I don't have a lot of legal knowledge, but I'm learning this along the way. But when I read it, and when I saw the part about how the Big Ten and the SEC basically would pull their television revenue, media rights, whatever, and then also accept that they can't grow along the way because they're going to be over $1 billion in revenue. There is no, I mean, people can say whatever they want about Petiti or Sankey or those kind. There's no reason why they would want to do that because they've been spending the last several years getting to that point, right?
Yeah, a part of me thinks that I don't know if the Big Ten is going to be super interested or the SEC super interested in expanding in the immediate future anyway, just because that it's no longer profitable once you're so large. But of course, they would be furious at the concept of a senator from Washington State and from Delaware and from Texas telling them that they can't. Why, that doesn't feel American to me, which telling you what you can and can't do with your business, right? And the issue about the pooling the media rights, I've told this to Cantwell's people. I've written this on Extra Points and shared this with others. If you were going to create a mechanism to pool media rights and waive the antitrust law to make that possible, and you're not going to force the Big Ten or the SEC to do it, which I guess you could do if you just decide to nationalize television broadcasts for college football or something. If you don't force them, there's no mechanism to get them to do it. They would rather make less money but have a bigger gap between them and everybody else than they would potentially make a little bit more money but then have this, the same television check coming in that Duke and Texas Tech and Baylor get. The other thing, and far be it from me to regularly agree with Greg Sankey on the internet, but I think he's right when he says we don't have any reason to believe that pooling all these media rights would automatically mean more money for everybody else. That sounds more like a plan for other people to draft off of the financial success of the SEC and kind of unspoken here, the Big Ten. There's only so many outlets, companies capable of buying television rights, and that number is getting smaller, not bigger. I don't know if you add a bunch of nickels and dimes and quarters that you're going to end up with a $100 bill for everybody. I know that there's a private equity group that's very influential right now in Congress that's pushing that idea, but that doesn't mean it's true.
What did you think of, speaking of private equity, but this was very clearly, this isn't PE, this is PI, this is private investment, but what did you think about the fact that none of the Big 12 schools have seemingly taken up Redbird Capital on their offer? It does feel like they're even advertising it now as more of a play for the future, the future TV deal, the future business partnerships and all of that. But did that surprise you in any way?
I was a little surprised that nobody took it. What I had been hearing leading up to this was that only 2 or 3 schools were seriously interested, and the schools that were more likely to take it were going to be some of the newer institutions in the league that have more infrastructure to build up. But you've heard this now, I think, from several athletic directors of the public schools that have turned this down, and the rationale makes complete sense. And that's the money's too expensive. Whether you're Colorado or UCF or Iowa State or Texas Tech, and you need $30 million to build a new baseball stadium or to make some other hires, you can sell a bond. You can go to your governor. You can borrow money from a regional bank, from the university itself, or some other entity for 4.5%. And what Redbird is offering is that money, I want to say, was around 10. And that's generally not a good financial deal unless you've exhausted traditional avenues or opportunities to get capital. What makes it working with somebody like Redbird potentially attractive is bringing in their expertise. I can think it actually makes a fair amount of sense for the Big 12 as a conference to do that $12.5 million deal with Redbird, and maybe other leagues might look to doing that too. But if you're Houston, it's true. Like you really don't need that money. And if you do, you can get it way cheaper than what's being offered here. And I'm not surprised people are turning that down.
Man, how many Freedom of Information Act letters do you send out every year?
Every year?
Oh, let's just say in the last 24 hours. I bet it's like, I know you do a bunch. I'm just trying to kind of in a light way, just kind of pick your brain on that.
Sure. In the last 24 hours, I think probably just 5.
Okay.
It's easily north of 1,000 over the course of a year. I'll tell you, like there's about 200 or so public schools in Division I, and we will foil every single one of them at least twice a year, usually 3 times a year, for just basic transactional stuff. Give me your saw you hired a baseball coach. Let's see the new contracts. I saw you you switched from Adidas to Nike. Let's follow up on that and your annual budget. And then we'll do a ton over the course of the year for things that are very serious and things that are not so serious. Like I tweeted this right before I hopped on here. I sent out a request to 20 schools because one of my readers asked, how much toilet paper does a college football stadium go through? I'm like, that's a great question. Let's find out. And God bless the University of Washington. They did the math and they shared the numbers. And if I get 5 or 6 more, I'll do a whole story on it. But we send out requests for what are the contracts for halftime show entertainment, right? What is the cost to book Red Panda? What does it cost to get insurance for a marching band? A lot of that really granular thing, and then the more granular stuff that sometimes the schools that work with us that or that are subscribed to our newsletter ask us to find out, and we're happy to do that too.
So Matt, I would like to leave on more of like a football adjacent note, and just wonder, we're like a month out from Media Day starting up, which is fun, but also kind of frightening. We got to take advantage of these last few weeks. But what in this crazy ass off season has piqued your interest the most that you're looking forward to? The potential for success or disaster in Baton Rouge, like the SEC pointing fingers, Dabo versus Pete Gold. Like there's been so many things. The playoff talk obviously never goes away. Just what's piqued your interest?
I'm trying to think here for a second about what is especially interesting on the field. I am really interested in Clemson football this year because Clemson did something that made sense in the moment, but is extraordinarily risky to do, which is they essentially gave Dabo tenure. And I get why they did it, right? Because he was the most successful coach in school history, and steered the institution out of 20 years of mediocrity, and has been an important cultural force within the school at large. Like the athletic department in the school has borrowed some of Dabo's personality and demeanor and everything, and I think mostly in a positive way. And they are not hitting close to expectations right now. They're going through assistant coaches, and Dabo's clearly really frustrated with the fact that people are frustrated with him. I have absolutely no idea how good they're going to be. They could win the ACC. They could finish 7-5, and just beat South Carolina at the end of the year. But how it's not common. I think that you see really successful coaches completely reinvent themselves and change what made them successful. It's part of what was part of the true genius of Nick Saban, I think. I don't know. I have no idea if Dabo has it in him. And if he doesn't, that's going to be a real messy divorce.
You're right, because they won a national title in 80 or 81.
81, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and they had some guys, some players and teams that were pretty good, but they were almost like Georgia. Remember, Georgia won with Herschel Walker and Vince Dooley back in, I think, 80, beat Notre Dame. And they had some good teams, but then they didn't start knocking on that like high level of national championship competitors until like in the last 6 to 8 years when Kirby showed up.
Yeah, they came close a couple of times under Mark Richt, but yeah. I'm old enough to remember earlier in my career the term Clemsoning. as part of the college football fan vernacular, to come in with high expectations and to blow a 21-point lead to Georgia Tech on a Wednesday or something, or to somehow fail, even though you have recruited very well and have these other things going for you. And I remember what Clemson was like before Dabo, which was, a perennial 500-ish, often forgettable on television kind of team. But it's not just that, because you can have teams where you win a lot of games and the coach relationship is kind of transactional. I think it's a little bit different for Dabo, because this whole thing is we're gonna lead with family. We're not gonna make college football transactional. We're gonna make this the gigantic non-denominational Protestant church camp, and we're gonna baptize people at midfield, and had a lot in common with the kind of people that root for Clemson. And none of this is pejorative, by the way, right? Like this, there's something very admirable about going from selling insurance to building a national championship, college football team. But the way that you built those teams in 2016, 17, 18 is not the same way that you built them now. And it happens, but that's not super common, I think, for coaches to completely, change how they approach roster management or how they approach their things schematically.
Matt Brown, Extra Points on Twitter at Extra Points MB, online extrapointsmb.com. So glad when I saw you on the timeline. It's been a while. We've had you on a lot. You do an incredible job with a lot of the research and all that. But just with your knowledge, Matt, have a great week. Thank you very much for your time.
Of course. Thanks, fellas. Until next time.
Matt Brown, he can spit out the information and works his ass off to get a lot of the information that we mentioned in the interview with him. One note, for those of you who did not catch the early part of the show, and we were on Twitter, we were on Instagram, but on YouTube it was a hiccup. We have the interview with Michael McCann from Harvard Law School. He also, of course, is a legal analyst for Sportico and very, very much involved in a lot of the opinions, like many others we've had. We've been able to find that interview from earlier today, and we're going to replay that interview. It's like 8 minutes long. A lot of you have asked about it. You wanted to hear it, watch it, and we'll have that for you. Off the radar, of course, around the corner. And then Garrett Ross, along with everything else he and Rez are doing, is also working on some audio, video clips of Joey McGuire and the Big 12 spring meetings going on up in Frisco. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco, and where you can find a couple of things that you need to find if you are, for example, a patient of a doctor and something is really bothering you. There is pain in your lower back, in your shoulder, in your knees. You feel like maybe you've torn a muscle or perhaps even worse, a ligament, although torn muscles aren't good either. And your doctor wants a better look, and they've even done whatever x-rays, they've done diagnosis, but they need another look, a better look. Ideal MRI has a state-of-the-art imaging machine and $497 or less every single time when you get an MRI from there. I've had 4 now, I think 4 or 5. And the last one I went to, because of my age and being on Medicare, I didn't have to pay a dime. But $497 is a steal when the average MRI around the country is well over $1,000. State-of-the-art imaging machine, great Texan specialists, a business that's been around for a decade and do a great job. Doctors know about them. They refer you to them. And once they do, go get the MRI, and then they will get the results and all the images and evidence they need at IdealMRI.com. Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go as we are about halfway through the 4 o'clock hour. Off the radar with Craig Smoke at 4:45 or in that neighborhood. And then at 5 o'clock, I was talking to Garrett. Joey McGuire spent, he didn't really, from what I can tell, not sure about how much he mentioned or was even asked about Brendan Sorsby. He and Rich Rod are up in Frisco with the Big 12 spring meetings, but also spent part of the time talking about the wanting to try to play UT in football. That's not going to happen. He gave some examples of that. But I keep getting super chats from a lot of the Texas Tech alums, donors, and boosters and fans. They beat Mississippi State 8-0. Texas lost to Tennessee 6-3. Tonight, UCLA, Alabama. And then Arkansas and Nebraska will play at 6 and then at 8:30 Central Time. So earlier today, Craig and I had a chance to visit with Michael McCann. He is a legal expert, not just with sports, but that's a lot of what he does. He writes and also is an analyst for Sportico, Associate Dean, Professor of Law, Visiting Professor of Law of Harvard. He also was a part of that Ed O'Bannon case and wrote the book about that case and what it meant to college athletics. And here's that conversation. Well, Mr. McCann, thank you very much for your time. I just read the Cody Campbell response to the SEC statement. Your thoughts about that and then where we are. Is this ever going to work out for anybody?
Yeah, I haven't seen everything. I've been in a work meeting, so I'm a little behind on the latest. But I would say, from what I just heard you guys talking about, I mean, this is to be expected, that there's a lot of chaos and there isn't going to be a resolution to issues when there's an assumption that Congress is going to solve everything. And I think that's what we're seeing, is this assumption that Congress is eventually going to pass a bill that creates new rules. But what we're seeing is that they've tried that for 6 years. There have been more than 40 bills. None has advanced. And maybe the Cruz-Cantwell bill will be different. But even on the media rights sharing, I mean, why would schools even share? I mean, sort of that is, to me, the more interesting question. Even if they can share with an antitrust exemption. Doesn't mean they will. And besides the fact that there's all sorts of problems with that because it's predicated on an interpretation of a federal law, the Sports Broadcasting Act, which only goes to sponsored telecasting, which means TV free over the air the way it used to be before cable TV, which isn't going to really help out.
So, Michael, I'm assuming that was probably one of the things that jumped out to you initially. But when you first saw this, for what you have been able to see, what did you identify kind of right away as of most interest, or of what you think will probably be the hardest battle, or what you kind of side-eyed a little bit?
I mean, they avoid saying college athletes aren't employees, so that will help them in the sense that was a natural source of opposition to some of the other bills that tried to declare college athletes aren't employees, which is also legally problematic because whether somebody's an employee at a public university is based on state law, not federal law. But they avoided that topic. So I think that was smart. I think they came up with a set of proposals that sort of are a series of concessions. One is the idea that a coach is restricted on when they can leave a job, which I think has popular appeal. On the other hand, that could interfere with freedom of contract. You know, whether a coach leaves a school, we may not like it when a coach leaves, but that's what an employment contract should do. It should punish the coach when he or she does that. So some of the topics that are in the bill, I don't know if there's enough there to generate momentum for passage. It's also at a bad time of the year to introduce a bill. We're now approaching the summer. The Senate will be on recess. There's a filibuster. Then it's got to go to the House. Even if it passes the Senate, we got midterm elections. It's just not an ideal time to introduce a big concept.
Michael, when you first saw it, and it's 111 pages, and a lot of people, it took them time, and I saw some that I trust a lot more, like you and others that kind of were able to grind through it. In the end, after you watched or started reading it and throughout it, is this, I don't want to say waste of time, but does this have a chance?
I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's constructive to come up with ideas. I mean, that's what the legislative process should be for. Now, whether they should be spending time on sports stuff, I mean, that's an open-ended question. There are other things that maybe Congress should be working on, but I don't think it's a waste of time in the sense that it introduces a lot of ideas, and it looks like they put a lot of time into it. That's the other thing I would say. It's bipartisan. I mean, there are parts of it that I think are good and appealing. Does it have a chance? I'm skeptical, just because of the time of the year, the fact that I don't know how they get 60 votes in the Senate. I mean, that strikes me as really tough. I mean, think about it. They haven't gotten a majority, let alone 60. So, and also the midterm elections are coming up, so members will be traveling. I don't know. I mean, what happens with these bills is sort of the same script. They get a lot of media attention. ESPN, Yahoo, other big media companies cover them. The senators get airtime. They get quotes in there, and then 4 weeks later, we're thinking, what happened to that? And it's gone. And it's tough. It's sort of like Groundhog Day. I think it's going to be tough to get around that. So, Michael, bear with me as I try to ask this question, but I see a lot of the jargon when talked about this from people like yourself, or from fans, or from even college leaders. And there's a lot of, not necessarily from yourself, but like there's a lot of business jargon being used when it comes to like talking about media rights. And you would think we're almost talking about professional sports leagues, the way it's sort of talked about. And I have to remind myself, we're talking about universities, we're talking about college athletics programs, but it feels like the conversation is like we're talking about the NFL and the NBA. Do you see that being an issue in this, and that this is unique because it is college sports? Like, what does that present as opposed to like this was the MLB trying to negotiate something? Yeah, it's a great question, because these colleges are all different, right? It's not like the 32 NFL teams, all of which have a ton of money, all of which operate more or less the same way, or the same thing with baseball, right? Now, granted, the Dodgers have more than the Pirates and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, they're basically the same thing. Colleges are different, especially with Division I being so large. There are schools that have huge endowments. There are schools that have modest ones. There are small private colleges that could go out of business in the next 5 years because of the demographic cliff with fewer kids born in 2008. That's going to have a real effect on enrollment. So these colleges are all over the board in terms of their situation. Some of them are going to be aghast. I mean, just the whole revenue share, right? Is paying athletes. For some colleges, it's nothing. For others, it's not possible. So it's a really interesting point, because this isn't, it's like a pro league, like you said, media rights. On the other hand, the actors, the teams are so all over the board, unlike in pro sports where they're more or less the same.
And with political ties that are all different, right? Like, I mean, if you're a school in Minnesota, your people, your politicians are going to be looking out for you, but Ohio's different and Texas is different, but they kind of have to, I think that's where the whole, like, I see people go, why worry about the whole enterprise? These schools only make money. It's like, because there's so many vested interests across the country.
Yeah. I mean, and we're in an election year, so political stuff is going to get amplified to the extent. Now, I think to the credit of Senators Cruz and Cantwell, they present this as a bipartisan idea, so that tries to soften that issue. But I don't know what the support is among other Republicans or other Democrats. It remains to be seen. Certainly, are there 60? I mean, that I'm not sure of.
Michael, I know you've got just a couple of minutes because you have an errand you're running right now. But if, in fact, the schools underneath the NCAA umbrella, specifically the FBS schools, the Power Four conferences, Notre Dame, if they would only follow the rules that they are the ones that help create, would any of this be necessary?
I mean, a lot of this is self-inflicted, right? I mean, NIL, for example, NIL is supposed to be like an endorsement deal. It's supposed to draw from an athlete's right of publicity, but schools are using it to recruit athletes. So NIL is morphed into something different. So schools are going against their own rules. And if schools don't want to follow their own rules, why should Congress help them? And even if Congress passes something, who's to think that these rules are actually going to be followed? I mean, that's the fundamental problem, is that colleges don't play by the rules. And they're going to say, well, our competitors aren't. That's not a great excuse, right? If a student cheats on a test and says, well, the other person's doing it, they're both cheating and they both get in trouble. And I think to me, that's a big problem. Forget whether college athletes should be paid or employees. Like, colleges just follow the rules, and a lot of them aren't, it seems.
Michael McCann, appreciate his time from earlier today. We had the stream up on Twitter and also with the Instagram and wanted to share that. Some of you asked if we could replay it. And Craig, I thought he was great, but we've had some tremendous legal minds over the last several months, and it seems like we're going to need more before it's all said and done. Garrett, by the way, has been pulling off some clips and audio, video with the Big 12 spring meetings up in Frisco. Joey McGuire talking about Brendan Sorsby, not able to say much, and even wanting to get a game with UT in football this year, and including conversations with Texas State and Abilene Christian. We'll have that and more. Craig's Off the Radar is coming up next, and this is the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports. How much pain do you feel in your body from arthritis? And you don't have to be my age. You could be 35 and start having issues. You could have, for example, even in your hands or your knuckles or in your joints, whether it's your elbows or shoulders or your back or your knees and ankles. Now, you can find relief. I found relief after nearly 5 years of just I had this tugging, pulling pain in my right hip. I was told different things it was from my back or no structural damage, no bone on bone, but just could not get right. And then I went up to visit with the great people at QC Kinetics, got a free consultation. They sat down with me, explained the system and the treatment, explained everything to me, helping patients get pain-free, become pain-free, without surgery or any kind of long recoveries. That's what I've done. Ran 2 miles this morning. Did not do anything for nearly 4.5 years. When it came to even simply jogging a few steps, I couldn't do it. It just brought me down. But because they are now, QC Kinetics, using my natural biologics within my own blood, within my body, putting it back in my body, they draw blood, they spin it, they put it back in my lower waistline, and it is amazing how much better I feel. It got to the point where, honestly, getting out of bed, I feel that immediately. Long-lasting regenerative treatments for joint pain. And that's worked for me. And I want to work for you. I want it to work for you. So if you've heard the discussion about procedures or surgeries or getting cut on, wait. Go and get a free consultation from QC Kinetics, finally giving you the right tools, your own tools inside your body to heal your body. Here are the numbers on the screen in Dallas. That's where I go on Highway, Dallas Parkway, Central Parkway. Dallas 972-972-8610. Houston 713-913-5285. Multiple locations in both cities. Helping me. I want to help you, and they will help you at QCkinetics.com. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.
It's time for Craig Smokes Off the Radar.
Welcome in Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Appreciate you being along for the ride today. However, you are riding with us, and let's get into a few stories from outside of college football in particular for just a few moments, and then we'll return to it. And I can tell you that, Joe McGuire was a little bit spicy at the podium today, Big 12 meeting. So looking forward to talking about what he had to say, and the back and forth with Texas continues. But before we get to that, I want to start off with Kyle Busch, the late Kyle Busch. It was around Saturday morning when I saw the report, got a text message from, I believe it was my sister, the night before. We had been talking about the tragedy that was the sudden passing of Kyle Busch, and we were all just kind of giving our reactions to it and talking about it and wondering what happened, like a lot of other people, even though we kind of were told sort of what had been going on as far as a sinus issue and this, that, and the other. But, of course, this past weekend, the official word came down that he passed away from sepsis ultimately. And the official verbiage of what he passed away from was hemorrhagic shock and disseminated intravascular coagulation after complications from bacterial pneumonia led to sepsis. That, according to his death certificate. He had been, as now further reports have been coming out, you heard that he had sinus issues and that he was doing this, that, or the other and fighting through it. But more and more reports indicating that he had been experiencing symptoms of bacterial pneumonia for days to weeks before sepsis set in. That also according to the certificate, and his death listed as natural causes, just 41 years old. I know we've kind of talked about this, but I think just what's really alarming, and I've seen now people who have poured over the death certificate, is just how preventable this was. And there was no need for him to die. Like, there really wasn't. And I know some blame is going to be placed on, well, you want to pass the blame, right? Especially in a time of heartbreak and pain and all of that. And so why didn't your team do more? But ultimately, he's a grown-ass man. And he's probably doing grown-ass man things of like, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm 41 years old, I'm an athlete, I'm a driver. Like, I'm just gonna push through this thing. And so we, without assuming too much, it sounds as though, yeah, he was really struggling, had something that wasn't going away. And rather than just getting it fixed up and getting probably some rest, which is what would have helped him tremendously, he was still racing. He was racing the weekend before when he should have been in bed and probably should have been on heavy medications. And I know it's too little too late to say all that now, and I'm not trying to say anything negative by that other than just, man, please let this be a wake-up call for some people who feel like they have to battle through everything to make sure they're at work every day. And I understand there are circumstances where you're positioned to have to feel that way, but I also think there's a lot of men being tough stuff as well and just powering through because that's what you're supposed to do. But sometimes you do need to get help, and unfortunately, that was the case here where, for whatever reason, he wasn't tended to, either his own choice or the people around him, whatever. This was entirely preventable, his actual passing, and that's what is just brutal to realize amongst what is just a very, very sad story. So, yeah, just all the official word coming down. And you're somebody that dealt with double pneumonia. You nearly died from it, actually.
I really did.
Yeah.
I moved to Waco in June of 2010, and for some reason, about September, when the weather would get chilly I got sick, and I thought it was allergies. I thought, give me a steroid shot. Remember what he said when he was in his car? Hey, meet me at the whatever, his truck or where his home.
After the race.
Yeah. So I started listening to that. I remember I went to go get a steroid shot on a Thursday evening. I then went to bed, woke up the next day, and I felt just as bad as I did the night before. That never happens with a steroid shot. If it's allergies or something like that, Paul, we were going to go to Brownwood to do a high school game. He drove me around and he realized I was basically just out.
Like Paul, in so many ways, probably saved your life. I mean, if you really think about it.
He regrets it to this day, as many others do. But literally, he did. He drove around. I had a couple of pillows. I was going to sleep on my way to Brownwood, do the game. He called Cindy, and she came in late that night. It was a couple of days later when she took me to the hospital, to Hillcrest Hospital. And on the way home, she got a call from the hospital that said, I believe this is correct, had you not brought him in tonight for us to get meds in his system, he has like 80-something% double pneumonia blockage. He may not have awakened the next day.
Yeah. So,
and that was double pneumonia. I did not have sepsis, thank God. It never got to that point, but I lost 30 pounds in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So that's where you were headed, though, was probably sepsis and probably death. I mean, not trying to play it up to more than what it was. Like, he really could have died by waiting a few more hours. And that's just what I'm reminded of with the Kyle Busch thing, because it's similar in that he just was probably pushing through thinking, oh, this is just this type of thing that won't go away. And then it got too bad to deal with. And what resulted. And it's just a really
I walked around with an oxygen tank for about 10 days after I got out of the ICU.
Yeah. So all those details have been coming out, and it just really makes it even sadder that it was something that technically could have been worked through, preventable, or, as far as the end result goes. So it's just heartbreaking. And I was talking to family, everybody's response, oh my God, did you hear that news? And I know they're not all NASCAR fans, and I'm not necessarily a NASCAR fan, if you will. I'm just impartial to it mostly, but definitely know that he was one of the biggest, brightest stars in history, and certainly present day as well. And it's just an awful story. But I think we were all curious of what happened, and it all makes sense, but it's just very frustrating to know that it could have turned out differently. So hopefully there's somebody there in like Louisville, Kentucky or something that, gets sick here in the next few months, and it's like, I'm just going to fight through it. And they decide, you know what, maybe I need to get this checked out, and maybe it saves a life. That's what I hope. If nothing else can come from it, then maybe men, especially because we're stubborn idiots that have to be tough, that you're able to just go, you know what, I'm really sick, I need some help. So yeah, you needed oxygen. You were hours away from death. I mean, is that fair to say?
Went inside the emergency room, and they took me up.
But you wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for
I
Paul.
would have fallen
You would have
asleep.
you would have fallen asleep and never woken up.
Yep, I would have. Yeah, you're right.
So there you go with that. Just an awful, awful tragedy. And of course, the tributes continue to pour in, and they will. And I feel for the family more than anything else. And I know I also feel for his fan base because he had a lot of damn fans out there. But rest in peace to Kyle Busch. All right, a few other notes here. I guess let's go baseball here. There's just some interesting headlines out there in the sports world today, including this one. I think everybody's sort of setting themselves up for, if you don't follow baseball, another strike in about a year or in the phase of next offseason, because there's just the elements in play to go back to where we've been a couple times before, and that is with a strike affecting Major League Baseball's season. And 1994, remember it well, when they didn't play for the longest of time before eventually coming to an agreement. But this of interest as they start to try and do what they can to prevent a strike from actually occurring in 2027. Owners have proposed a hard salary cap to players as part of the next CBA. Their first firm cap proposal since 1994 from ESPN. This originates. Under the proposal presented to union officials, each team would maintain a payroll of at least $171.2 million, but not exceeding $245.3 million. That would start in 2027. That would include player benefits as it does under the current competitive balance system. And they need to negotiate this and settle before December 1st, or the owners are going to lock out the players until they reach a new deal. And if that occurs, then the lockout's the lockout. There is no, hey, I'm going to come to the facility and train. It's like, no, you can't enter the facility. You are completely locked out. We've seen this before, of course, for those of us old enough, and everything will stop. No trades, no anything. It'll be a total shutdown. So they're going to meet again in the coming weeks and just further go back and forth. But one of the comments from league spokesperson Glenn Kaplan was, fans overwhelmingly support a salary cap and floor like in other leagues because they don't believe a $446 million spending gap from top to bottom is a fair fight. Our salary cap and floor proposal levels the playing field while sharing baseball revenue with the players 50-50 as we grow the game together. And how much of a disparity is there? Like, we've heard all about the Dodgers, and a lot of their success does also come with the fact that they're spending as much more than everybody. And in some cases, like multiple teams combined, 12 teams would need to increase payrolls to reach the minimum threshold. This to show you the disparity of the spending. 12, that's nearly half the damn league wouldn't even meet the minimum threshold in spending. So you're talking like Tampa, of course, and kind of the usual suspects there. But there's other details that are involved.
I don't know which ones. I'm going to guess Tampa, Minnesota, Kansas City. Kansas City's got some stars, but
hold on. I've actually got a list. Go ahead and try that again.
Tampa, Minnesota.
Yes.
Kansas City.
No on Kansas City.
Seattle.
No.
Boy, I'm not doing.
I've got
well
the list. The A's, of course.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I lost Las Vegas, Oakland / Sacramento, whoever A's. Yeah.
Yeah. The A's, and soon to be the Las Vegas A's. I'm sure their spending will change once they get into their new digs, which is being built right now. But the A's, the Rockies, the Cardinals, the Guardians, White Sox, Pirates, Twins, Brewers.
Pirates,
Rays, Marlins, Nationals, Reds, they would all need to bump up their payrolls.
St. Louis is in a mode where they finally had to say, we're just going to be bad for a while. We're just not going to you have to sometimes just say, we're going to just cut back. We're going to be bad. And we're going to try to be healthier on the other end of it. Because they normally spend a lot.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, the teams that would actually have to lower their payroll would be the Dodgers, of course, the Yankees, of course, sorry Mets, of course, the Blue Jays, Phillies, Red Sox. I mean, none of those are surprises, right? The Braves, not a surprise, and the Padres. Those would be the teams that would actually have to lower their payroll to meet the maximum threshold. So far more under the proposed minimum than there are that are over the proposed maximum. But it's just funny when we're talking salary caps, and then we have all these college football conversations, and like none of these SEC or Big Ten teams with money advantages want to give that up. And I don't imagine the Yankees, the Red Sox would want to give that up. But then again, you probably are kind of tired of spending all the money you're spending. Maybe this is a way to reel it in a little bit. But it's just interesting because they are the only league in our system of the leagues that matter that does not have a salary cap. So
they have a tax, right? They have they have a tax. If you spend over a certain amount, you're going to have to pay an extra amount.
Yeah, but there's workarounds, and the Dodgers are proof of that. Because all they do is they put it to like 7 years down the road. So you're paying Ohtani like good money, but not at all like what his contract says. And you're paying like a balloon payment like way down the line. So you're not affected by it.
Do you know how many billion? What is the number that the Dodgers have pushed down the road, actually even into the 2040s?
Oh, like tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's like 1.3 or 4 billion.
Oh, well, I wouldn't
what they
be surprised.
call that money. It's going to be paid, but no.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is a quick Google, so take it for what it's worth, because now we just get force-fed whatever AI says, and AI is not always right. But according to Google AI, just to see what it said, $680 million of Shohei Ohtani's $700 million contract has been pushed down the line. So he's getting like $2 million a year, and then the rest of it, with the remaining $68 million per year to be paid out with interest between 2034 and 2043. So that does not need to happen.
No,
that's bullshit. I'm sorry. I mean, you dropped one, I'll go ahead and drop one too.
You're such a potty
That's
mouth.
playing around the system, so I'm all for it. I'm all for the idea. I'm sure there will be a lot of players that are not in favor of this, all of them probably, but it's probably what's needed when you've seen teams like the Dodgers who have found a way to play the system. And hey, there's nothing wrong with it. They're playing within the guidelines. Give them credit for that. But it's also just kind of nonsense when you've got the best player in the world. You're paying him $2 million, even though you signed him to a giant $700 million deal, and you're not paying that until he's basically going to be retiring. At that point is when he'll actually see the bulk of the contract money. So yeah, like we need less of that. So anyways, just it's of note that they are proposing a salary cap, because this is the one league that does not have it. And if they don't go for it, then we're barreling towards a lockout in 2027.
The Dodgers have pushed over $1 billion into 2047.
Yeah, they win World Series in the meantime, playing under the rules. But in reality, there's like all this money that they're just pushing and pushing
like
and pushing.
Bobby Bonilla contract.
Yeah, it's like I just hey, good for you. You figured a way out to make it work for you, but it's just that's garbage. For the league as a whole, I feel like to be able to work it like that. So nevertheless, couple other notes, and let's get to the schedule today. The NBA has proposed their anti-tanking format. The Board of Governors voted nearly unanimously to change the draft lottery format starting with next year's 2027 draft. The new format will expand the lottery from 14 to 16 teams. And it gets into the details of it, but there's anti-tanking measures where the bottom three teams have now lesser chances for number one. It flattens the odds for others that don't make the playoffs or make the full playoffs. Like if you're in the play-in tournament, you would have your odds flattened. So that's how they address teams just going out there and being like, let's lose. Let's just lose. And the more we lose, the better the chances we have. This is a way to combat that. This has been worked on for the past couple of months. And the lone dissenter was the Memphis Grizzlies. And if I did my research right, it's because of a trade they did with, I believe it was the Jazz, that now they're going to end up getting a worse pick as a result of this because of the rules changes. So what they thought they had as far as a higher draft pick is now going to be a lower draft pick. So I think that they voted against it for that reason of it actually punishes them and part of the business that they were doing. But that was the only dissenter and didn't matter in the long run. So there you go. We'll see if this addresses. There's a way more laid out version of details if you care about all of the details of this, but they have voted to expand the lottery and address their tanking problem 29-1. So there you go with that. We'll see if it works or not. Meanwhile, the NBA
Finals not quite set. We know the Knicks are in. Tonight, Oklahoma City's at San Antonio, 7:30 on NBC and Peacock. OKC can advance to another finals, the defending champions, as they are up 3-2, but San Antonio at home with a last stand to try to keep this series going. And will you be watching that later on tonight?
Yeah, I will be. You know where I stand with the NBA. The Spurs are my favorite team, but among the professional sports, it's not first, second, or third. It's like there is no third or fourth. I'm not locked in on. I don't know what it is. I watch a lot of the NBA these days. I've said this from afar, like it's on, and then I'll go check it out in 15 or 20-minute increments.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch a bit of it. I've found the Stanley Cup playoffs more interesting personally. That's been now for 2 or 3 years. I've kind of felt that way around this time period, but I will definitely have eyes glued to whoever versus Knicks, at least initially, just to see what kind of the atmosphere and stuff is, because New York being in it does add a little extra element of just, okay, this is different and exciting and fun. So we'll be looking forward to that. But first things first, OKC trying to close it out tonight on the road. NHL playoffs, nobody playing tonight, as we're just down to the Eastern Conference Finals and waiting for those to be decided to see who will go and play the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Finals. But tomorrow night it will be Montreal at Carolina, and Carolina's up 3-1.
Yeah, they remember that. I think Montreal won the opener, didn't they not? Carolina had that long layoff, and here come the Hurricanes.
Yeah, so Hurricanes trying to close it on out and go to meet the Golden Knights, just like what you thought, of course, right? Las Vegas and Carolina and hockey in the finals. So there is that as well.
The country of Canada is just
yeah, they're hurting, but I think that's where I'm going to lead this. I think that's enough information for today. So there you go. Oh, I will make one more mention of just the softball real quick because there are a couple games tonight. So if you don't want to watch the NBA Western Conference Finals, you do have baseball will start on Friday with a bazillion games this weekend. But tonight, softball, there was a couple finals earlier today. Tennessee beats Texas. It's double elimination, mind you. So Longhorns still alive, but Tennessee beats Texas 6-3. Texas Tech beats Mississippi State 8-0. And then coming up here in just a little bit, UCLA and Alabama. And then later on tonight, also on ESPN, UCLA, Alabama on ESPN, and then Arkansas, Nebraska as well to follow.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, because of the lack of success in football for the last 10 to 12, 15 years, man, this Nebraska men's basketball team and now volleyball and all these other sports that are important, but they're not football, it's wearing me out having to kind of hope they are pretty good. I don't know if Arkansas's Nebraska, what happens, but it's kind of nice. They're making a nice run.
Nebraska's seated one spot
but
higher.
I'm worn out because I'm not used to like seeing them in these postseason situations, and I don't know if I have the capability of getting through it.
Suck it up, Buttercup, and enjoy it while you can, because football is giving you nothing to celebrate. So at least some other sports are doing that for you. So, yeah, it's not something to be nervous or scared about. It's something just enjoy while you can, because who knows when you get those opportunities again, as football has proven out for 20-plus years. So, there you go. UCLA, Bama, Arkansas, Nebraska, those coming up later on this evening.
Without giving up the story, because we do need a break, come back with some Joey McGuire video. Who was the pitcher that I sent you that story? I could ask everyone if they're interested in baseball, that has this insane streak of scoreless innings that's like approaching, which is the record by Oral Hershiser in the upper 50s. His last name Sanchez?
Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah, from Philadelphia. Look up that story.
Yeah, he's got the consecutive scoreless innings. I'm not sure where it is exactly as you asked me that, but I had a couple MLB stories we just don't have time for. The other one was about Jacob Mizorowski, who's throwing 100 miles per hour on seemingly every single pitch now. Broke the record a few days ago for most pitches over 100 miles per hour. Had nearly 60 pitches of 100 miles per hour in his latest outing, which is just insane, and the most they've seen in nearly 20 years in a single game. So he is a fireball thrower. I just wonder in like a couple of years, like, what does his shoulder and elbow look like? But he is
he's chunking, man. So yeah, there's some interesting little statistical kind of oddity things going on in baseball right now, but that can be for another day. We'll dive a little bit further into
All
that.
right, when we come back, Garrett Ross has been surfing and working the internet, and along with the Zoom link made available by the Big 12 on both Rich Rod and Joey McGuire at the Big 12 spring meetings, and a couple of different topics that Joey touched on. One, Brendan Sorsby. Number two, he got into that game that Tech wants to play Texas, and that's a turf war and an ego war and all that. We'll have that next, and I'm telling you yet again, Rez has done an amazing job of getting us through what we do every day. This is the Smoke Show on 365 Sports, and back in a moment. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
I have a lot of friends reach out to me about buying vehicles for their fleet and their business, and I always recommend Allen Samuels. You see a lot of businesses running different brands, but I really think Rams are the best looking ones out there. They're going to take care of you. They're going to make sure that you get what you need, and they're always going to take care of you on the service side and the sales side.
Like Allen Samuels always said, Waco has a lot to offer, and so do we at Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
Thank you for watching what we do. And today on YouTube, 365 Sports, The Smoke Show, also on Instagram and Twitter, at David Smoke on the Twitter timeline. We appreciate you. So mentioned this yesterday, that the Big 12 spring meeting started yesterday in Frisco at the Omni. And that today, Rich Rod from West Virginia, Scott Draper from the Big 12, and then Joey McGuire would be available for a presser. And here is Joey McGuire. He initially, I think, started talking about wanting to play UT. We'll get to that quote in a minute, but here is Joey McGuire answering a question about Brendan Sorsby.
Getting help with his gambling addiction. We'll continue to support Brendan. I've talked to him multiple times since he's left the facility. And I do that with all my players. Gambling is something right now that we've seen a huge uptick in college students, and I don't think college athletes are really, you can separate them, because I think you are going to see an uptick in that, and so regardless of the timeline when Brendan sought help for his gambling, he has done it at a level that has never been done whenever it comes to college athletics of this. help that he's been asking for. You know, my job at my core has always been to develop and support young men. That's on and off the field, and we're not going to change that. So we're here to support Brendan. I do believe that he made a mistake, and whenever that happens, I do believe that there should be consequences. But it's my opinion that he shouldn't be penalized for the rest of this year or his career. I think this is when you look at what has been put out and what he's been really honest with and transparent with, he's got a serious problem. And I think the best place to get help, and our president alluded to it, is him being at Texas Tech and him being able to play. And so I think Brendan's come out and said that, you know, he believes that there should be a penalty also, and he's ready to serve that penalty, but we just don't believe that it should be for the full year. He has not returned to campus yet. We have talked because he was in a rehab for such a long time. He hadn't been able to see his family, hadn't had any downtime, and so I told him to go home for a few days and take a deep breath, and we'll get him back on campus, you know, here in a few days. But you know, we at Texas Tech believe in Brennan, and we're here to support him in every way. And at the end of the day, whatever the ruling is, we're going to support him 100%. And he chose Texas Tech, so he's a Red Raider. He's going to be a Red Raider for life, and I'll be a part of his life and help him in any way I can.
All right. Thanks to Garrett for getting that up and getting it to you with the audio and the video from Frisco. Craig, your thoughts? Didn't expect him to have anything that was earth shattering, but first time we've heard from him really other than a statement.
Yeah, I saw that a little bit earlier, and I wish especially knowing that there's probably gonna be some people interested in this, wish the Big 12, they didn't have like an official feed up for that meeting. But
well, there's two things. First of all, the microphone's 3 feet away from him, and it's like this, and yeah, it's unfortunate.
But I think you could probably catch the gist of what he was saying there. Totally respect his opinion on it. Wouldn't have expected him to say anything else than basically what he said there, which was throwing all of his support behind his guy and hoping that there's a resolution that results in him playing. And as Joey stated, that's his opinion. My opinion is that no, he shouldn't have a chance to play this season based on what's happened before and based on the precedent that it sets. I mean, that's the thing is I hate it for Brendan Sorsby, but at the same time, somebody's got to be the example. And I think if you say that we have a really bad gambling problem in this country right now, I would totally agree with you on that. If you said we have a really bad gambling problem when it comes to the younger folks especially, and what that turns into in another 5, 10, 15, 20 years with more waves of people just growing up with it, acting like it's the same thing as pushing the button on a vending machine, but you're betting however much money on balls and strikes or whatever, I would agree with that. I think greed, like everything else in this country, has overtaken common sense. And so we just, where's the money to be made? Zoom. And then we worry about the consequences of it later. I'm in agreement with all those things, but that doesn't mean that Brendan Sorsby deserves the benefit of the doubt here and deserves to be the exception to the rule and deserves to have his cake and eat it too. I'm glad that Joey said that he has a problem, acknowledge that, because I think that became very clear. If you're wondering whether he did or not, you may still wonder whether he got the right help or not. We'll see that over time, and that'll be dealt with in his personal life. But yeah, it was very clear he had a problem. Like the amounts, even if it was just little minute by minute types of things. I mean, when you were talking about, it was like Northwestern Soccer League scores, and it's like, come on, man, you got an issue for sure. But I'm glad that Tech has things in place that look like they can help him. I would just ask Joey, why does that mean he has to play football? Can he still go to Tech and just get that help? Can he still be a Red Raider and a student athlete or a student and get the same exact support that he would if he was not starting quarterback or if he was a starting quarterback? That's what I would wonder, because if that can happen, then I'm all for that. I'm all for him staying at Texas Tech, and I'm all for him getting the help that he can with their treatment center and their professionals and their experts. And I think that would be a great idea. I just don't think that he also deserves to play football as well. So, I commend him for addressing it and being there in support. I wouldn't expect anything else from Tech or Joey McGuire, but I just don't agree on the outcome.
Yeah, I again, it's just good to hear a little bit. And of course, you have that hearing, of course, Monday,
Yes.
June 1st will be interesting to see what we hear or find out then.
That'll be kind of the end of this, I feel like. Not sure if you can go and then try to sue or whatever, but we're starting to get into a time crunch. If the start of June, you're suddenly like, well, now I'm going to take you to court, and I don't know how all that would work. First of all, like, we just don't know what that decision is going to be. Like, we think we know what the decision should be, but we don't know what it will be. So there's always a chance that there could be a total curveball, and this judge decides that kind of Joey's way of thinking here is the right way to go of, hey, it's an interesting time period. Gambling's everywhere. Young people are being inundated. He made a mistake. This, that, and the other. I can see somebody coming to that conclusion, but I think when you take the whole package, again, my opinion doesn't change. But the good news for Brendan Sorsby is he's definitely got a great support system. He's got a great head coach, and I think he'll have a lot of people around Lubbock that will be willing to help him. I just don't think that it has to be only if, that the quarterback part comes hand in hand with that necessarily. Yeah, very interested to see what that decision is early next week.
Super chat, and if you don't mind, let's put it up, and then we're going to go to a tweet with a quote from Kim Coulter. You and I have talked about this. No answer to the main questions. Very disappointed he didn't speak to the two real questions, and one of them was the one I've asked is, how much or did Texas Tech know about Brendan Sorsby's gambling issues while they were recruiting him and also before they signed him to an NIL contract?
Was that the two questions?
Yeah,
those two?
Yeah.
That's very valid. And yeah, I'd be interested to know that as well. I mean, same thing with Cincinnati, right? What did they know and when did they know it? And did they know when he was quarterbacking them last year that this wasn't already an issue? You put the dots together and you go, I think they probably did, right? Like, and if they didn't, that's kind of damning as well if they didn't. And then did they know that when they sued him for his NIL money?
You mean Texas Tech is damning they didn't know about his gambling?
I'm saying Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, because a lot of times people want to point at Tech. And when the president released that statement, you're like, oh, what do you think they're going to do now? Would they do that to every student athlete? You, like Craig said, you hope. But we don't know those questions, and may not know until there's any kind of what's the word I always forget about, mediation or whatever, when you have facts, because people have to talk, text messages, etc.
I'm just saying, I think it's very valid to wonder what Tech knew and when in the process of recruiting Brendan Sorsby. And I also think it's valid to also then turn towards Cincinnati and say the same questions about, when did you first learn about this? And did you know this when you decided to play him last year? If this did, in fact, come out to some degree prior to last season, in which he suited up and played for you the entire year. So, can you repeat Kim's, because it's only showing the partial text here? The
SMOAK,
two questions.
you and I have talked about this. No answer to the main questions. Very disappointing he didn't speak to the two real questions. Kim and I have chatted a few texts, and also in the chat room, that did Tech know about Brendan Sorsby's history with gambling while they were recruiting him, and also before they signed him to a contract and NIL deal?
Yeah, and of course you would hope the answer to that is no and no, but you don't know. Yeah, and that's very fair.
To me, that's if I'm there, and I'm not trying to say that I don't know if that was asked. I don't know if that was asked. If I'm there, that question has to be asked today.
Yeah, and then the other part of that is I don't know that he answers it, honestly, if they did in fact know, right? He's not going to sit there and go, yeah, we totally knew. Oh, you did? And you signed him anyways, and you gave him even more money to bet with than he already had
and we
before?
Don't know that, yeah.
And so, I don't know that we would get the answer even if he was asked that question, because they're going to protect themselves if they feel they need to protect themselves. But there are very much some unanswered questions, Kim and others, for both the folks in Lubbock who helped arrange the deal and did the background work and decided he was the guy to pursue. And what did they know when? And same thing for Cincinnati and the folks there. I know that Chad Brendel said that as far as he was
told that Cincinnati had no idea this, that, and the other, but I also know he's spouting what he's being told by people who want that to be the angle. So I'm not sure what the truth is on either account. I feel like we'll probably eventually find that out. I don't know when, but I think we'll eventually. There's going to be a deep dive expose on this, whether he ends up playing or not. There's another part of this story where we need to know the real deal about his lifetime ban, or we need to know like how it led to him actually being able to come back after some type of a suspension.
All right, from Aardvark, wait a second. Chad Brendel has been all over this reporting. Aardvark, we quoted Chad Brendel. 2 quotes from Chad Brendel about what he said, that Cincinnati is telling him that they had no idea about anything with Brendan Sorsby and his gambling or his issues with a gambling or addiction or any of that. We've already said that maybe a couple of 3 weeks ago. So you may not watch us every day, but I want to clarify. We appreciate you and the heads up. We have Chad Brendel on the show. We have already quoted him.
No, I think that it's valid to ask him, like, yeah, I'm just bringing him up.
No, he's not asking. He's saying you guys are quoting tech propaganda is what he's saying. He's talking
well, that would be helpful to know that part of the text, because that totally changes it. And, yeah, that's just being a D-head for no reason because, yeah, we've also talked about the Cincinnati side. So here I was trying to defend you a little bit, but I can play that game too. So, I've appreciated what Chad's had to say on it. I know he's also being sourced by Cincinnati folks, or sourcing Cincinnati folks, much the same way a tech reporter's sourcing probably people close to tech. So I don't anticipate that Cincinnati folks would probably tell Chad anything other than, no, we're good. We didn't know, especially in the immediate aftermath of this. So, that's why I'm interested to see more reporting. I think there's more to be unveiled and talked about and uncovered and reported on when it comes to Cincinnati and to Lubbock, Texas, and their roles or lack thereof in this story.
There was also a part of this, and again, we saw it going on. Garrett peeled some off. Remember the Sark made the comment about there's a team in our state, whatever, that this and that, and that we would have won with our 2s and 3s. Never said Tech. You can think it was Tech. You could think it was somebody else as well, or SMU or North Texas or X, Y, and Z. But we all can kind of read between the lines. So Joey today was discussing playing Texas. And what I thought was trying to set up maybe a game for down the road, which I don't think that's never going to happen unless it's in the playoff. Here is a quote from Don Williams, I believe it was, who made this comment. Joey McGuire on Steve Sarkisian, this is from Chris Vanini, alluding to Texas Tech's schedule, says he talked to Texas State and Abilene Christian and would love to buy out those games to play Texas this year, week 1. If not Lubbock, then AT&T Stadium. We would love to play Texas. In fact, there was another part of this where Cody Campbell apparently has already talked to both those other schools and to Stephen Jones about trying to make that happen. That is what has been up since Joey talked earlier today.
I mean, I can already hear Sark complaining about their non-conference schedule and not making the playoff or something like that. I'm just looking back to last year, and he had a lot to say about that. So I think with Ohio State already on the schedule, I don't think they'd be too keen to also play Texas Tech and then hurt themselves potentially even worse off that early in the season. Maybe not. Maybe Texas would win that game. The last result, a lot has changed since then. I'm not sure what it would look like with the 2026 versions of both those teams. I think it'd be a hell of a game. I hope we see it in the playoff at minimum. I know this is not going to happen, but it's a fun way to push back from the Tech side of things on Sark's comments and say, all right, big boy, if you want to play, then let's play. We'll go to the lengths of buying out a couple teams and they can go play each other. They've already agreed to it. There's no hypothetical here. Like we'll just go here. It's already set up. All you have to do is sign off and say yes. And I don't think they will get a yes in return. It would be incredible if they did, but I think that's slightly more than 0% chance Texas will turn around in the next day or so and say, all right, yeah, we'll take you up on that. Let's go to AT&T Stadium. But it would be the greatest storyline of the entire offseason if they did. It would trump everything, in my opinion, even the Kiffin stuff. If we had two teams who said, you know what, screw you, know what, screw you. All right, let's play. Bam, boom, let's go do it. That would be amazing. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like Texas should still be playing the TCUs, the Baylors, the Texas Techs on some sort of a rotation to where they're still getting a little bit of it. I know there's the bad blood and the feeling like we don't need to lower ourselves to that or whatever, but just in line with all the regionality and college football, like I do think regionality is still better than we're all the same no matter where we are, and it's all just nothing matters as far as the part of the country and all that. So, yeah, I would love to see this be a way that somehow got us some more of those types of games, but I doubt that it will be.
All right.
It's a fun ass response. I mean, that's a perfect response by the Texas Tech side. Say, all right, we're not backing down. And in fact, we're setting the table. All you got to do is show up to dinner.
So there'll be a lot of back and forth on that for the rest of the evening and day, and they may never play again. I do wish that there were a series against the teams that were a part of the Southwest Conference and Big 12. But again,
but A&M has
they're playing Ohio State,
right? No, I'm not. It's not a schedule like as far as who you. It's just that A&M left for the SEC and they played nobody. From Texas since then, as far as the teams that they typically would play, and there's been multiple bowl opportunities, and somehow or another it always falls through.
Or even Texas A&M, when Texas was a part of the Big 12, there were probably a couple of times when they should have played in the bowl game based on the way it's supposed to work. And they didn't.
No, there's definitely some politicking that's gone on, I feel like, in some of these bowl scenarios where it just makes a lot more sense to have played like Texas Tech in this specific bowl game, and somehow instead it ends up being like whoever it ends up being. I think those bowl games would be far more attractive, especially when they're not like the top level ones. It's like, okay, so let's put them versus some random as opposed to a team they have history with. I just think it's a shame that we don't just see some sampling of A&M playing a TCU just in the regular season for a couple of home and away, and then don't play them again for 20 years, but at least like have some of that. And I think Texas is going that same direction. So we're just going to have those two play each other and never play anybody else unless they're absolutely forced to. And I just think that kind of sucks. But
all right. Kind of a neat way to finish it up today,
I'd rather see that than see Texas versus Mississippi State. But it's the way it works now.
And now back and forth in the chat room. We appreciate all of you, but I'm glad that when you say something, again, we want to make sure if we see it, we're going to respond to it. But we've been pretty consistent on the Sorsby story from day one. And again, brought up Chad Brendel. Let's get to a break or we'll go ahead.
I think the sides on both sides are reporting what they're hearing. I just think that we're not getting the full details on either side. And I think eventually we will. Eventually we will learn more about what Cincinnati knew or didn't. And eventually we will learn more about what Texas Tech did or did not know in recruiting Sorsby. And all that will come out in the wash ultimately. I don't know if it'll change anything. But, yeah, I consistently had the same opinion about the outcome of this thing. But we'll learn early next week. And I'm fascinated to see what that decision is, because one way or the other we can move in another direction. We're either going to now say, all right, Brendan, good luck to you. Best of luck trying to get in the supplemental draft. And let's focus on Will Hammond's health now and the rest of that quarterback room. Or we're going to be talking about, well, Will Hammond for like 5 games. What can they go? And then Brendan Sorsby's back by week 6. Like, it'll just be nice to know what the next steps are one way or the other.
Rez, do you want to break here or do you want to? Another super chat. That's even better. Okay, one more super chat. And it is from Firefighter. Thunder up, baby. Game 6, Oklahoma City and San Antonio. The Spurs are down 3-2. The Thunder, winning last year, the whole thing, are trying to close out the Western Conference Finals.
Yep, good luck to you. Thunder up. I know my cousin that I ran into this past weekend, her and her husband, big Thunder fans, live in Norman, have for 20-something years now. So I know they're excited. And, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you.
Bulls fan, this is how you keep non-college football bowl games around. Get rid of the, I'm not sure exactly what tie-ins, and you play your rival if you guys didn't play during the regular season, as far as if you're in a different conference. Or even if you're in the same conference, like you had BYU play Colorado that one year.
I mean, it's like a couple of years ago when we had SMU and Texas right there in the playoff, and they're like, nope, Clemson and Texas instead, and SMU's going to Penn State, and it's like, I get it. I understand there are reasons why, but man, SMU Texas was right there. They'll never play if not for this scenario. And so you could have done it, and it wouldn't have really changed much in the bracket from what I recall. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But, yeah, give me Texas Tech versus Texas in the
freaking Alamo Bowl in week 1 of the season, I'm actually okay with, if those are the types of games we get. But instead, if it's like Cal versus Texas, I'm far less interested in that. Just stick that at the end of the year where it belongs in the Holiday Bowl at the end of the year, but if we want to spice things up and bring back some regionality and also save the bowls, that'd be a way to do it, to arrange games that would matter and have some passion to them. Let's get Tech and A&M in a room together and see what's what.
Yeah, Tech and A&M, or those schools, need to get a room. Yeah, they need to get a room. All right, what do you want to do? The wheel? Let's go straight to the wheel.
In a hypothetical future where Waco builds a city monorail system, would you ride it, given a trip on it would be slightly faster than driving? Probably not. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever have a reason to take the monorail.
First of all, Waco, it's a growing
that big,
city. It's not that large, although the traffic on 35 is a nightmare because they're constantly trying to increase the number of lanes, and it's that way now. It was that way. If a monorail was built from, let's say, Dallas-Fort Worth to San Antonio, I would ride that son of a gun. I would. I've seen stories, and I really am interested with what Japan has done with their system, and it's phenomenal. I think the state of Texas, they were going to do something. I forgot which one it was. It Mark White or whoever the governor after that might have been. But they were going to do that, like a above the ground, like monorail type system. And I could be wrong on the details. They were going to do it, decided against it. But my goodness, can you imagine? I would pay whatever it would cost, even though there's a lot of tollways and big, huge outside tolls around the bigger cities to help you with traffic.
Yeah, I mean, if it was statewide, that'd be a different story. Just jump on a train and in an hour or two, whatever the time would be, get to San Antonio or something for a day trip or something. That'd be awesome. Citywide though, I don't see the need for it. No, I don't think it's nearly a big enough city for that need. Stick with the bus system. And I'm sure whatever project that was you're referring to got killed by some special interest group of some sort.
I don't know what it was. It might have been.
There's been talks for a long time because this is a very big state. I mean, only Alaska's bigger, so it is a haul to get around. But in city, no, I wouldn't need that.
Kim with a shot. I'm in the Venetian in Vegas. They provide a driver for me. And Aardvark, thank you for the comment. I came in a little bit too hot. That's all good. You're good. It's good. We're good. That's why we're here. That's why we like to be able to read it and respond to you as well. Let's do quizzes. Andrew Valade with the first quiz question, and we have been on a streak of mightiness. On May 28, 1967, Major League Baseball approved the Giants' move from
57.
Approved the Giants' move from what was New York to San Francisco, which temporary venue hosted their first 2 West Coast seasons before Candlestick Park opened. Oh man, I know Kezar Stadium is where the 49ers used to play before Candlestick. So I wonder if that's the same one.
I don't think I've ever heard of Kezar Stadium.
Oh yeah, I have.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I have and I've just forgotten. But the name that stood out to me was Seal Stadium. It's just the one that jumped off the page to me. And I don't even know where Seal Stadium is. That just sounds like I don't believe at all is the Oakland Coliseum. I don't recall anything about them playing in LA temporarily.
You know how the Raiders.
Where is Seal Stadium? Can I at least look that up?
Yeah, go ahead and look it up. I think I'm leaning towards Kezar Stadium because I do know that's where the 49ers used to play.
Okay, Seal Stadium's in San Francisco.
All right, so now we got.
It's right.
Let's do Seals because otherwise, why would that ever be in this list?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there you go. All right.
You cheated.
If you want to take a half a point away, I asked you if I could Google. I mean, I was sticking with my answer.
You really like the Seal Stadium. That stuck out. And
look at the logo next to it. It's the Golden Gate Bridge too.
Well, okay then.
Leaving behind the aging Polo Grounds, the Giants moved west for the 58 season for their first 2 years in Cali.
They played at Seal Stadium, a minor league park, held just over 22,000 fans. Meanwhile, their bitter rivals, the Dodgers, packed more than 90,000 into the massive LA Memorial Coliseum before Dodger Stadium finally opened in 1962. So there you go. Yeah, Seal Stadium rung a bell. And yeah, glad to get that one right.
All right, so we continue our streak. Seal Stadium. Craig brought me out of Kezar.
Where is Kezar?
It's in San Francisco.
Oh,
it's where the
okay.
49ers used to play back in the day, like before Candlestick was built. And let's go to quiz number 2. Friday, May 28th of 2006, Barry Bonds hit his 715th career home run to officially pass Babe Ruth, second on the all-time list. Which pitcher gave up the historic record-breaking blast?
I don't remember who gave that up. There is a 75% chance it is a pitcher from Asia.
You think? Hideo Nomo, Chano Park, and Byung-Hun Kim.
Yeah, got some Korean and Japanese
I
representation
want to think
here.
it was Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would remember if it was Roger Clemens.
Well, we had Chano Park was with the Padres. Nomo was pitching for the White Sox. Clemens, of course, was with the Astros at the time. It wasn't Roger Clemens. Not that he wouldn't have hit a home run off Clemens.
Right.
I want to go with Byung-Hun Kim.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just don't think it's Roger Clemens, so that sounds fine with me. All right, there you go.
Thank you very much. What?
Andrew can't even just get one strike across the plate.
Andrew's he's not sleeping tonight. This has been a streak from unbelievable. Playing at home in San Francisco, Bonds crushed a 90-mile-per-hour fastball from Rockies reliever Byung-Hun Kim over the center field wall. 445-foot blast broke a lengthy 15-game home run drought for Bonds, moving him past the Bambino Babe Ruth, leaving him trailing only the great Henry Aaron. Bonds would eventually pass Aaron the next summer with eventually 762 career home runs. All right, 2-0. Win the day, 2-0. Let's get to the poll results for what you have, our viewers, you've put up today. And we start with this. Should the SEC officially break away from the NCAA and form its own Super League, which, oh, by the way, that was one of the quotes from Greg Sankey today, that he thinks we already are a Super League.
I mean, again, he's a guy whose job is to talk about them like they're the greatest thing ever, so wouldn't expect anything else from him. But as far as this question goes, I'd say I'm at the point now, like I said at the start of the show, where I'm with Jamie Pollard, like, go. I'm not rooting for it. I say no, protect regular tradition. Should the SEC officially break away? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Should they give in to every demand and lower themselves to just be equal with everybody? Absolutely not. They shouldn't do that either. But I'm willing to call the bluff and say, I don't think you can go and do it and be as successful as you think you can be. And I know a lot of people think they could just ride off and go get a $1 contract and be the greatest thing ever other than the NFL. I want to see it now. I want to see it. There's been a lot of talk about it. I'm not so sure that it would work that way, because I can guarantee you there'd be a lot of people that are like, I'm not interested in that.
What's going to happen first, that they try that, or Tech and Texas play in a regular season non-conference game?
At this point, I think it's probably this. I think they'd probably break away. I don't see either one of those Texas schools having any appetite to try and play anybody else. I don't think they feel like it does them any good or anything along those lines. I think that's a real shame. And I'm not saying they don't have reasons to feel that way. I'm sure in some cases there's like personal reasons why you wouldn't want to play a specific school. So that's all fine and understandable. But yeah, I would say the SEC, I mean, as much as it's being talked about, hell, it's being talked about more than the Texas Tech Texas thing. So yeah, go and do it. Go see what that looks like.
It won't work. You're not going to do it by yourself. The Big Ten can't do it by itself. The two conferences together, I don't think, can do it with those two together by themselves. But if that's what you want to do, I'm all for let's move on, and let's get to whatever the other rules are going to be for everybody else remaining, whoever that might be, who also joins the SEC and Big Ten along the way.
I know there are people in SEC country who feel the SEC is the equivalent of the NFL, but if you just took this this bottom right corner of the country and said, this is your NFL, America's going to be like, no, the hell it's not. If the Big Ten joins, I think you'd have a lot of people on board. You'd probably be somewhat successful, but I don't think it would be the end-all, be-all that it's been proposed as it would be. Like, so, right. I want the SEC to stick around. I want them to figure out a way to solve some of these problems so we can talk about some other things occasionally that aren't just settling on a playoff format. Just too complicated.
A heavy percentage, Craig, go protect the regular tradition. I hope that's what ends up being true. And then finally, the other poll question to close it out today. Happy National Hamburger Day. I did not know that. I should have gone to Double R. Which of these burger types is your absolute favorite?
I love hamburgers. I love cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had the crispy smash burger. So I think I'd just vote classic cheeseburger. Bacon, I love bacon, but I don't want it all the time necessarily. Mushroom I can do without, even though a mushroom Swiss is pretty good. So yeah, I'd say classic cheeseburger of the four.
Me too. I like a smoky bacon, maybe for breakfast. And I don't mind it on smoky bacon.
I think it's bacon cheeseburger.
I do like bacon. I do like bacon, but a smoky bacon burger is tempting. But no, I want the classic cheeseburger, and it wins in a close battle, 34% compared to smoky bacon burger at 29%. All right. Thank you all very much for your time today. Rez, Garrett, Logan, and also Andrew Valade and you, our sponsors too. Craig, we'll see you tomorrow. Been a wonderful and fun day, and we have pivoted many different times. We got through the show. Thank you for your time. 365 Sports and the Smoke Show. We'll see you tomorrow at 3.